The views expressed on the Nova Society are those of the panelists and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Phoenix Research Institute or any institution which any panel member is associated. Welcome back to the Nova Society, a space where dialogue deepens understanding and civic responsibility comes to life. I'm Dr. Mark Bound, joined by our regular panel, Dr. Scott Gershwer and Dr. Brooklyn Ann Weldon. Together, we'll unpack the stories that matter most, exploring the headlines, the history, and the big ideas shaping today's conversations. Let's dive in and hear what the panel has for us today.
Today we have a question from Brandon, who writes to us from Boston, Massachusetts. And Brandon writes, the SCOTUS struck down the tariffs that Trump unilaterally imposed on many of our foreign trading partners. He held a press conference where he derided the justices, even two that he appointed, who voted against him, calling the justices un-American and an embarrassment to the country and to their families. Of course, within hours, Trump signed an order for another 10% tariff on everyone, and later he raised it to 15%. Do you think this, too, will be struck down by the SCOTUS? Still, there is talk of refunds now. Should we, the people, expect refund checks for all the pain these tariffs have caused? Or is that just another example of wishful thinking, like the DOGE checks and the promised $2,000 Trump promised a few months ago? Finally, I know you record on Wednesdays, but can I also get your take on the State of the Union address? What stuck out to you, and did you think the message would help Trump's sagging approval ratings? Thank you, Brandon. No, we will not be expecting any tariff rebates. We the
Damn
people.
it! And I've been sitting out by my own mailbox. Wow, that just peed in my cornflakes. I've been really waiting for that.
And we're also not sure whether it's 10% or 15%, because 10%, the 10% seems to be the official position, whereas 15% was some sort of tweet or social media, something or other. But the last time I checked the website, it still said 10%. So no one seems to be sure whether it's 10% or 15%. And agreements are, whether this supersedes agreements that Trump already had with other countries. No one knows that either. So, there was an agreement that the EU was going to have a large trade agreement. I forget the name of it. It began with a T. The European Union has actually said, "Oh, we're not going to go forward with that." It was a huge trade agreement. People are they're tired of this. These are supposed to expire in 150 days, by the way. And then thereafter, Trump's supposed to go to the Congress to have it renewed. In my opinion, Trump is not going to bother with that. He's already said, well, I've already gone to Congress and they've agreed. And in one respect, I can see where he would argue that he has already gone to Congress because Congress has not stopped him from levying the tariffs that were illegal in the first place. In my estimation, he'll either drop the tariffs for one day and then say, okay, now they're extended for another 150 days, or he'll claim that Congress has already extended them, just the same as he's claimed that he's already gone to Congress, or he doesn't have to go to Congress, rather, because they've already given him permission to do whatever he wants to do. I think he's simply going to continue to say another 150 days, while all this uncertainty exists. Other countries are not going to do business. Other organizations that might want to invest manufacturing, for example, in this country, they're not going to do it. It's the stupidest policy. Tariffs. The whole thing is just asinine. And but he's going to continue the way he is, and he's going to continue hurting Americans. And nothing he said in the State of the Union that I forced myself for about an hour and a half. It was just the greatest hits of all the rallies and the the Republican National Congress, oh, I've done all this stuff, and this is so wonderful, and everything I've done, and it was not a State of the Union at all.
I'm glad to say that the Knicks played Cleveland last night, and even though the Knicks clunked one three-pointer after another and turned the ball over what seemed to be about 35 times, it was probably more entertaining than watching this speech. I really just couldn't bring myself to do it. So I don't know anything about it. I'll just say that I'm sure it was a pack of lies, and that I'm sure that he didn't bring up things that were embarrassing to him. That he continues to claim we're the hottest country in the world, which is one of those hypnotism things that he does that gets people to nod along with him. But let's deal with the tariff situation, I think, because it's a little bit more interesting. What's going to happen, what's already happening, is that companies are suing the government to get their money back. And in my fevered imagination, my guess is that some of those companies will indeed be refunded money that they spent on customs. I mean, it's not very difficult, I don't think, to trace back the amount of money that they would have spent, that they did spend, and reimburse them the difference between those two things. Then it's going to largely be a matter of class action suits against those companies to recoup outlays by consumers who were charged because of those tariffs. And that's going to largely be a matter of lawyers suing the companies once they've been reimbursed. So all of this is going to take quite some time. In the meantime, somebody needs to answer the fact that these 15% across the board tariffs basically hurt our allies or trading partners that we get along with, and hurt them a lot more than it hurts the Chinas and other people who we know have been stealing IP and doing all kinds of stuff that you would want to trade reform to address, not getting addressed. So, this is simply an ego thing on the part of Trump, who looks at trade deficits for the most part and says we can't have these trade deficits. It's a ridiculous idea. He continues to claim, whether he doesn't know or doesn't care, that other countries pay those tariffs. I believe I did see that he mentioned that last night, that he said other countries are going to pay these tariffs and we're going to rake in trillions of dollars. Folks, it's simply not true. That's not the way it works. And, he continues to lie to people. I think that we're already seeing Trump fatigue. And look, any president in their second term can cause fatigue amongst voters, right? I mean, even Obama, there was a period of time where there was fatigue amongst his supporters who were getting tired of having to defend him all the time from charges that were being made by other people, including Donald Trump, who claimed that he wasn't even a U.S. citizen and so on and so forth. It's just exhausting when you have to defend somebody so much. And look, 8 years in the United States of America is a long time. We just heard recently that Khamenei, the leader, the supreme leader of Iran, thinks it's hysterical that he's still there after, I don't know, 20 or 30 or 40 years, however long he's been in office. And there have been 5 U.S. presidents in that time. And if he doesn't like a U.S. president, all he has to do is wait. And he's more than willing to wait without thinking twice about it. Well, that's not the way we think in the United States. We think 8 years is probably too long, or just long enough. And that we certainly don't want anybody in power for 10 years. I think we saw that with Reagan Bush, right? When Bush came in as the third term of Reagan, people were tired of it already. And he was a one-term president because even though he accomplished some terrific things, Was a one-term president because of fatigue. Well, I think Trump fatigue has set in, and even his followers are beginning to tire of his act because it's the same thing over and over and over again. There's nothing ever new. And if you start thinking like making lists about the good things, the top 3 things that he's done that are good, and the top 3 things that he's done that are bad, it's a hell of a lot easier to come up with the bad list.
Yeah.
And, changing sides in the Cold War, supporting Russia instead of Ukraine, supporting Russia instead of our allies, supporting, dictators rather than other democracies, probably on close to the top of the list. Handing Afghanistan back to the Taliban after 20 years of fighting to keep them out would be another one. And that's just a couple of foreign policy tidbits. And then everything that he's done to divide the country, to destroy our faith in institutions, so on and so forth. He continues to do that. It continues to be a big focus of his to destroy our faith in institutions, which will now this year include elections. And the State of the Union, frankly, is not very good.
Yeah, no, it's terrible. I think, was it Gerald Ford who said the State of the Union is bad or something, and that was the first thing out of his mouth. But what really disturbed me in the among many points of this whole awful performance last night was all the cheering and the clapping and the whistling, and when Trump mentioned Charlie Kirk, there were shouts of Charlie, Charlie, Charlie. And then Trump was saying, oh, you should be ashamed of yourselves for not standing up, when the Democrats, I guess, wouldn't stand it, because I was also watching something else with the sound off, so I didn't have to look at this. You should be ashamed of yourselves. And then other people were yelling at, I guess, the Democrats for not standing up and cheering along with everybody else. At what Al Green, I guess, who was thrown out for the second time in a Trump speech. He had a sign saying, "Black people are not apes," and one of the Republican people, and I can't remember the guy's last name.
Mark Wayne Mullen.
Huh?
Mark Wayne Mullen.
Okay, thank you.
Of Oklahoma was the one who tried to grab it away from him.
Yeah. He did. He knocked it out of Al Green's hands.
Okay.
And to me, I mean, Al Green, that's his First Amendment right, is to stand there. He's silently holding up a sign. And I don't know, Mark, you're the legal person. I would say that's like assault. I mean, to have something bashed out of your hands that way. When you're standing there quietly holding something, you have a right to protest, and you have a First Right Amendment of free speech. And to have someone come up to you and hit something violently out of your hands that way, I don't think that was appropriate at all.
Well, it's not appropriate. It truly is not. But I will say this, Al Green, you know better. You knew you were going to get kicked out. You know better. You knew what you were doing. And, the bottom line is that that's just not, I mean, that's not civil discourse, plain and simple. You have plenty of other mechanisms to be able to do it during the State of the Union. It's not the time to do it. And the same thing when they would yell at Biden, and we were all over about Marjorie Taylor Greene screaming at Biden, liar, liar, and doing all that kind of stuff. There's certain things that the political class understands what is appropriate etiquette and what is not. Al Green, you've been there long enough, for cripe's sakes, you know that's not the right thing. And if you were surprised that you were kicked out of the Congress, out of that meeting, out of that State of the Union, come on, Al. Then maybe it's time to retire, because you knew that was going to happen. And again, you've got other avenues to be able to voice your opinion and get that out there. So use those. Don't be doing it during the State of the Union. The fact that, and again, I did not watch a lot of it. I watched very little of it because I got bored with it, because it was the same old, same old. It wasn't anything new. And it was all theatrics. When he called the Democrats crazy. They're all crazy. They're all this. They're all that. Show me one other president in the history of the United States that did that. And that's our normal now. I mean, that supposedly is our normal. And it's not supposed to be. That's not the way it's supposed to work. But then again, we're a totally different country than we were. And we're a different country because, the people that are, that always held to social norms, even though they thought differently, have been basically given permission to come out and be crazy. Will this help his sagging approval ratings? I doubt it. He's got the people that believe in him. They're going to stick with him. He's got the people that don't believe in him. And those people seem to be growing at its independence. I did watch a little bit of the CNN after State of the Union, where they were talking to 4 Democrats, 4 Republicans, and two independents. And you know what? Neither side really could put a legitimate comment to what was really going on. They focused a lot on, well, this has to do with me. Well, this has to do with me. Well, this has to do with me. Very little of it had anything to do with the non-normal situation that our country's government is in today. And, again, it went down party lines. There's no, the one guy was asked that about, Al Green, and it was like, well, it's probably, come on, stop. And I think that we've now become this. This is why I have very little faith that we're going to, even in 2028, come back to any kind of sanity, or any time within the next 10 years of 2028, come back into any kind of sanity. Because the bottom line is that the crazy people are out. They have been given permission to speak as they want. Did he lie? Yeah, pretty much through the whole thing. Are there times when you should stand? Yeah, when you're giving out medals and things like that. And absolutely, you should. I give a lot of credit to the women's hockey team, U.S. women's Olympic hockey team, and I don't give a whole hell of a lot of credit to the men's hockey team. I really don't. Especially when you see Kash Patel sitting there come on, guys. I mean, that's not normal. That is not normal.
No, it's not. No, it's not. And Trump lied also because the women's hockey team said that they were not going to the White
Correct.
House. And Trump said, the women's hockey team will be here soon or whatever.
Yeah.
And no, they're not.
No, they're
and
not. And
thank
I don't
you,
blame
ladies.
them.
Absolutely. Don't go.
Yes, I wish your brother in the male group had shown as much courage. I mean, one of them actually handed Trump his gold medal. Trump put it around his neck. Well, I got news for you, kid. You're probably never going to see that one again. That's gone. And I don't think they have spares for the Olympic Committee. So you probably just lost that. All right, back to the tariff thing. All right, so this tariff thing is a little bit different than the last one. This one can be maintained if he can get the Congress to approve it in 150 days. That's where this is different. So you're probably not going to see anybody like SCOTUS or anybody else get involved into this until after we see what happens there. And then you're probably going to see the challenges to it. And remember, it's 10, 15% on top of the tariffs that already exist. So, this isn't just 10, 15%. This is more, in the long run. So calling the justices un-American, yeah, okay. They didn't go his way. Oh, well. Get over it.
I still think that Trump is going to try to find. I mean, look what they did with Alina Habba, who was appointed improperly and for a certain length of time, and then they tried to extend her time by, sending her off for whatever it was, and then reappointing her or whatever. And that didn't. I recognize that didn't work. However, this is Trump. And I think what do you think, Mark? I mean, I don't see that he's just going to allow this to expire in 150 days. It may wind up expiring in 150 days, but he's not going to relinquish his tariff power. That's the only leverage he has. He's going to find some other loophole, some other way to levy tariffs, because this is bringing in a lot of money for him.
Well, he's using some old law and some sections of old law to be able to implement this. And I have to admit, any kind of law written in the United States usually is badly written. And there's always a loophole or an exception or something else to it. So it's very possible. Can he just
1974
okay?
imbalance of payments or something that
Okay.
I don't really understand.
Right. And can he after 150 days wait a day and do it again? I don't know. I honestly don't know. And I don't think the law specifically spells it out. It says after 150 days, you've got to get congressional approval, which would say to me, you get 150 days. That's all you get. You don't get a second bite of the apple. After 150 days, you're done if you can't get congressional approval. So we'll see how that plays out, of course, because it's 1974. Heck, I was in high school. I don't know what, how it was written, and I really I'm not going to take the time to go back and try to read it to figure out what the heck they're talking about on this one. But the fact is that tariffs are bad. You're not going to see a refund. Will Costco or some of these other companies see a refund? Very possible. Very, very possible. Because they can show the paper trail of how much they paid in tariffs. They could show that. And so, now can you go and can you show with a paper trail how much you paid in tariffs? No, you can't. You can't do it. Good luck if you try. That'd be worse than itemizing at tax time. And the fact is that you're not going to see it. You're not going to see a rebate. And I got bad news for you. Costco gets a rebate. They're not passing it on to you. They're not going to pass it on to you. Maybe they'll bring the prices back down to where they should be. Maybe. But then again, we've always said Americans are consumers and we pay whatever you ask for. What's the incentive for Costco to drop their prices? Or any of these companies to drop their prices back to pre-tariff limits? They found out that we're willing to pay. Why bother? I get my tariff money back and I still get to hose the American public.
Well, plus they're still now paying, as you say, another 10-15% on top of whatever they were paying before in tariffs globally. So they're still paying a tariff.
Yeah.
So they've got there's no reason to lower prices. They may not be able to.
Yeah, at the very least, prices will come down a lot more slowly than they went up.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's kind of interesting. We were talking before in the last podcast about ICE, and the C in ICE is customs enforcement. That's the CE, Immigration and Customs. So it was created again in the wake of 9/11 in 2003 by merging parts of the Customs Service along with parts of Immigration and Naturalization, the INS, and so ICE is extremely well funded because of the ugly as fuck bill, and ICE is going to be the one who collects the tariffs at the ports. I don't know where they put the money once they get it, but it's ironic, I think, in a way that ICE is the same agency that we've been railing about has been so horrible of late, especially in Minnesota, but elsewhere as well, probably needs to be reformed, not just defunded, and that they're going to be the ones who are in charge of picking up the tariffs and deciding what to do with them. So I don't think anything's going to change much. But as I said before, these big companies, Costco, they have the lawyers that they need to bring suits. Many of them already have. Of course, that's going to wind its way through the courts, so that we're talking years.
Yes.
And then the only recourse that a consumer would have that would be meaningful in any way, shape, or form would be a class action lawsuit against a company that got reimbursed by the federal government to now get some kind of payback for the consumers who actually did the funding by paying higher prices. And you'll see lawyers looking for people who purchased something from Costco between such and such a day and such a time, and say, if you bought something, you may be entitled to a refund. Join our class action suit. And I would imagine that'll take a lot of time.
Oh, God, yeah. Absolutely. Oh, and just to clean up, U.S. Customs and Border Protection actually collect the tariffs, not ICE.
But is the customs still folded into ICE. That's what ICE stands for, is immigration.
Well, no, yeah,
and customs.
right. But the part that when tariffs are collected, it's actually border protection that picks that up for the U.S. Treasury. And again, here's the deal: it's so hard to be able to determine the difference between these two. I mean, Scott has pointed out how absolutely dishonest and how criminal Border Patrol is, and yeah, it's it's a sad state of affairs, especially when we see ICE and the actions that they take. So, yeah,
So I'm looking for a tell here because I didn't watch it myself. Did he bring up the idea of eliminating the income tax because of tariffs yesterday in the speech?
I believe that he did. Yes.
Okay, so there you go. That's back to my rentier state idea, where we're not going to be collecting revenue based on income, but on spending, and that the consumers are going to basically fund the federal government from now on.
Well, most people pay payroll tax. I mean, I don't know if we even pay personal income tax.
Well, it gets taken out of your paycheck, if that's what you mean. You don't have much of a choice on it. You can say that you have deductions and so forth and pay less money, maybe even get some back. But for the most part, your taxes are taken out of your paycheck.
Right. So then what exactly is this supposed to do now?
So my understanding is wealthy people have never liked the income tax, okay? And they've found great ways to avoid paying it, as Trump certainly has, and other people have. Elon Musk paid almost nothing in taxes. We've seen the stories. Perfectly legal tax avoidance rather than tax evasion is a perfectly legal use of lawyers and accountants to make sure that you don't have to pay anything in taxes. The idea of a rentier state is, generally speaking, these are mostly petrostates where they have a natural resource that has been nationalized by the government. And rather than collect money from the citizens, the government pays its citizens. And so whether you have a job or not, your family is going to get a certain amount of money from the government as let's say a windfall from the fact that your government sells so much oil to other countries, right? The problem with it, of course, is that the leader of the country gets to decide who gets what, and what you have is essentially what they call rents and rent-seeking behaviors on the parts of the very powerful to be first in line when it comes to getting handouts. And we've seen the Jeff Bezoses and Peter Thiels and Elon Musk's, all of them world-class rent seekers, standing first in line with their hats in their hand, waiting to get fat government contracts, while the rest of us are going to hope that because we support the regime, we're going to get something too. And that's the problem. We're giving up our freedom. Nobody likes to pay taxes. I certainly don't like to pay taxes. I'm sure nobody does. But paying taxes, paying income taxes, a progressive income tax, is one of the signs of a good government. And not having to pay taxes, but get money from the government, which is a highly bureaucratic and political, as we saw with the Soviet Union, based on whether you're a good member of the party or not, whether you support the regime, et cetera, is one of the signs of a really bad country, a bad government in a poorly run country. And that's what they want us to become. They want to eliminate the income tax and replace it with a consumption tax. That when we buy things from overseas, a certain percentage of the money that we pay for it goes to the federal government. And there's so much consumerism in the United States, as much as 66% of our economy is based on consumerism. that the consumer himself or herself becomes the natural resource that the government is exploiting to raise revenue. That is a pet theory of mine, and that Trump wants to move there because he is enthralled with and a member of these oligarchs who don't want to pay, and certainly Trump doesn't ever want to pay any income tax, doesn't have to, but replacing that with a consumption tax, and then what you do is, instead of working, basically you get a universal basic income that will, based on your loyalty to the regime, essentially, and that's how the government is funded. And every now and then Trump will say something like, I'm gonna give you back $2,000 in a tariff rebate, or we're gonna put some kind of stimulus out there. And what they've discovered is an incredibly small amount of money, $1,000, $1,500, $2,000, is more money than many people in this country have ever seen in their lives, and made a huge difference, made a huge impact in their lives. When Joe Manchin was screaming about the investment what was it? What was the first bill? The Build Back Better bill, right? Which he single-handedly killed in the Senate by refusing to go along with breaking the filibuster or even voting for it. So we didn't have any kind of majority there. When Manchin did that, he said, I don't want to give money to people in West Virginia, his state, to spend on drugs and alcohol. And a sea of social scientists went to West Virginia and interviewed people about the money that they had gotten from COVID, the money that they had gotten from the federal government. And they found that those people spent that money on food, school supplies, and clothing for their children. All very stimulating for the economy. Not, buying illegal drugs, which stimulates nothing, or even liquor, which, has, I suppose, some kind of stimulus effect to it. There are plenty of liquor stores around. Never seems to be a shortage of liquor stores. Thank God.
Yes.
And so, a very, very small amount of stimulus creates a huge windfall for the federal government in terms of economic activity. And consumers consume. We complain about prices. I remember listening to the radio, sitting on the beach in Fairfield, Connecticut, looking out at the water, a sea of boats, and people are complaining about gas prices. Didn't stop anybody from filling up their tank and taking their boat out there. And it's not going to stop anybody from, whether it's, maybe some people are not buying steak right now because it's really expensive. And maybe, ground beef has become really expensive. Coffee is really expensive. I still drink it every morning. But that's what we do. We bitch and moan, but we buy. And consumers are driving this economy, and the politicians want to tap into that, and they want to exploit that. And it's better for wealthy people not to have a progressive tax rate. And that's as regressive a tax as there is, a consumption tax.
And I will say this, Scott, in answer to your question, this is from Forbes. Yes, during the State of the Union address, Trump claimed that tariffs could substantially replace the income tax, suggesting they are a key part of his economic strategy. Yeah, bro.
So if the person does not support the regime, then could that be what all these millions of dollars that are being spent on huge empty buildings are for, is to contain people who don't support the regime? I was listening to, I don't remember who it was, who pointed out that in general, the government will lease buildings of this size instead of grossly overpaying compared to their value. There's one, I think it was in Georgia, I forget where it was, that they way overpaid for it, and they want to have something like 10,000 people in this empty building in May. And the town that they're putting it in, I can try to find the program I listened to if you want me to include it for the show notes. The town is a very small town with only something like 5,000 people in it, and putting 10,000 people in a gigantic warehouse will overtax the town's capacity. Beyond it's going to overshoot its carrying capacity, and people are alarmed at this. No one wants to talk on camera about it. They're afraid, which is also interesting. And so I wonder, if like the three of us, we don't support what's going on, and we are vocal about it. So then are these buildings going to be meant for us? Because you can deport people fairly quickly. These are supposed to be for deportees. Look how quickly people were deported last spring. The planes were in the air and people were gone before the lawyers could get to the judges. And then, the judges said, turn the planes around. Oh, we can't do that in international airspace. Oh, we didn't understand the order. Oh, this, oh, that. Oh, they've already landed. We can't reach them anymore. Now, all of a sudden, these are going to hold undocumented people.
Yeah, or people like you and me. I think you're right about that.
You have to wait and see. I know that the big story was the one that was going to go up in New Hampshire, and the New Hampshire governor basically said, well, I didn't know about that. So, again, you have to wait and see. But you know what, Brooke, you bring up a pretty good point. Yeah, we're vocal. And people are afraid to go on camera. Stop being afraid to go on camera. You know what? You got to put yourself out there. The most successful social movements are conducted by people willing to put their time, treasure, and something of value to them on the line for something they believe in. So if you're afraid to go on camera, and I understand it's easy to say, but if you're afraid to go on camera, you're not helping the problem. You've got to be willing to stand up. That's what the founding fathers did. They signed their name to a document that went to the King of England that basically told him, screw you. Treason, according to the British at that time. And these were men of wealth and property and status, and they still put they put it on the line. And we have to start being willing to put it on the line as well. And saying, well, I'm afraid because I might be sent to one of these camps. Okay. Yes, it's a possibility, but you've got to be willing. You have to be willing to do something. To stand up and say, no, this far and no farther. And if you're not, you can't. It's like voting. I always say, if you didn't vote, then you can't bitch. And I don't care what your excuse is. If you didn't vote and you don't like what's going on, then shut the hell up. And the fact is that, if somebody, and even here in South Carolina, now I'll be going out tonight. And will I get challenged by some of the Republican people down here? Yes. Will I open my mouth? Absolutely. Because my attitude is that, hey, I have the right to speak my mind as much as you have the right to speak yours. And no, if I don't listen to you and if I walk away, that's not canceling. I'm not stopping your ability to talk. I'm not, interrupting your free speech. I'm basically just saying that I don't have to listen to the bullshit that's coming out of your mouth. So it does. It requires people. Scott goes to the No Kings thing. His wife does the postcarding. Linda's involved in a couple of things online. And no, we don't use pseudonyms on there. We don't use pseudonyms on here. We're who we are. And the fact is that, here, I've heard many times, aren't you afraid that, somebody, especially you're in South Carolina, aren't you afraid that somebody... No, not really. If it happens, it happens. But, the fact of just saying, well, I'm afraid, so I'm just going to keep my mouth shut, that's the environment that these things continue to grow. That's where these things thrive, is in environments where people are unwilling to stand up and speak their mind And that's both sides. That is absolutely both sides. My only comment about the other side is, please, when you do speak your mind, can you at least have some facts back behind it? Just not feelings and bullshit and what Fox News told you to say.
And please don't shout at the top of your lungs either.
Oh, I like shouting.
Well, like Pam Bondi and these other people yelling and yelling. And just please speak in a conversational tone, and we'll actually have a conversation and a dialogue rather than yelling and yelling and yelling. And it's just like this speech last night. It wasn't a speech. It was a cult of personality. Just, I had to turn it off. I just thought, oh, I was listening actually to Alan Leishman's, and I forget who was there with him, their live reaction. And it was, I was far more interested in what Alan Leishman had to say than in what Trump had to say. It was like listening to a rally or any of the other many grievances and complaints that Trump had to talk about throughout the last however long Trump has been around, and publicly complaining about everything that he's due and all the wonderful things he's done, and how, although Trump did say one thing that I agree with, he said, he said we won't be going back to the way we were before. And I thought, yeah, I'm afraid we won't be. I think he means either before he became president in the first place, like to Barack Obama's time, or to Biden's time. And I'm thinking, yeah, we probably won't. We're losing our allies, thanks to him. So yeah, our place in the world has changed, and as we were talking before, that may be for the better for everybody else, but it's unlikely to be what people who voted for Trump and thought they were getting something good are likely to have wanted. And of course, they'll blame the Democrats and the liberals and anybody else they can find to blame, instead of understanding what they've actually done to themselves.
Absolutely. I think we will we'll close it at that. Thanks for the question from Boston. And that's all the time we have for today's episode. The Nova Society is a production of Nova Society Media, a division of the Phoenix Research Institute. We want to thank our production partners, Buzzsprout, who hosts the Nova Society, Audacity, our editing team, Apple Podcasts, the largest source of podcast and music online, Spotify, the most popular platform for the Nova Society, and iHeartRadio, your destination for all things music and podcasting. The Nova Society is available on all of these and other quality platforms listed in our description. And most importantly, we want to thank you, our listeners. Without your support, the Nova Society could not be possible. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing on the platform of your choice. It's easy, it's free, and helps our channel grow. For questions or comments, you can reach us at nova.society.podcast@gmail.com. So on behalf of Dr. Brooklyn Ann Weldon, Dr. Scott Gershworth, and all of our production partners here at the Nova Society, I'm Dr. Mark Bound. Remember, the true power of society is knowledge. Thank you for listening, and we hope to see you again next time. We'd like to thank our sponsor for this episode, the Phoenix Research Group, an independent research consortium dedicated to providing solutions to social and political issues for NGOs and international government agencies. Through multidisciplinary, nonpartisan, and unbiased research, the Phoenix Research Group advances understanding and practical strategies for complex challenges. The Phoenix Research Group is a division of the Phoenix Research Institute, the producer of the Nova Society podcast.